Molly here. Today we will be discussing Disney Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 6, the Interstellar Song Contest by Juno Dawson. First, I will do a recap, then we will do the review, and bookmarks will be placed accordingly. So if you don't want to listen to the recap, just go ahead and skip to that review. So here we go with the recap. In this episode, the Disney Doctor and Belinda arrive at a space station, Harmony Arena, in the year 2925, just in time to watch the 803rd Interstellar Song Contest, which is a continuation of our current Eurovision Song Contest. And it was even hosted by a cryogenically preserved Ryland Clark, who apparently is a big deal in the UK, but I had to look him up. And there was also an AI hologram of Graham Norton, who is somebody I'm actually acquainted with. I thought he was fantastic on Father Ted, and up until recently, I think he was doing the UK announcing for the Eurovision Song Contest. However, I don't think he did it this year, so I don't know, maybe he doesn't do it anymore. But anyway, so at least I know who that is. The Disney Doctor and Belinda, they get out of the TARDIS, they get their reading for the Vindicator, they realize where they are and what's going on, and decide to stay and watch the contest. Meanwhile, a duo of a race called Hellions, who look human except they have horns, hijack the broadcast and replace it with the pre-recorded rehearsal, and proceed to deactivate the arena's oxygen dome, which expels the Disney Doctor, the TARDIS, and nearly all of the viewing audience from the arena into space. Fortunately, there was some sort of Mavity field that just put everyone into some sort of cryonic stasis and nobody died. Wasn't exactly clear on exactly how that worked, but then again, Mavity is a made-up thing, so whatever. Belinda got lucky. She got trapped inside of their viewing booth and made it out into the hallway, where she meets one of the performers named Cora, and Cora's, I guess, boyfriend. Not really sure what the relationship was there, other than it was a close one. So, the Disney Doctor is adrift in space, and he's starting to freeze, and then he experiences a vision of his granddaughter, Susan, which motivated him to grab a nearby confetti cannon and shoot it off and use it to ride his way back into the arena. Fortunately, there was a nurse and a technician, Mike and Gary, who actually had their tickets stolen by the Doctor and Belinda, and they'd been trapped in the hallway outside. So they didn't get sucked out into space, and they were there, and they opened an airlock and brought the Disney Doctor in, and Nurse Mike revived him. Together with the nurse and the technician, the Disney Doctor works to thwart the male Hellions' plan to unleash a deadly delta wave intended to avenge the exploitation and destruction of his home planet, and he is intending to kill all the viewers of the contest, which is sponsored by the corporation that was responsible for the death of his homeworld. The Disney Doctor makes his way into the control room, confronts the male Hellion, and proceeds to torture him until Belinda shows up. The Hellions are subdued, and then Cora, who turns out to be a secret Hellion who cut off her own horns, proceeds to perform her song, even though Hellions are not allowed to participate in the contest. At the end of her song, she gets a standing ovation. The episode ends with the Disney Doctor and Belinda discovering that Earth was destroyed on May 24th, 2025, and that's why the Disney Doctor can't get Belinda home. In the mid-credits, a scene comes up, and Mrs. Flood, who was shot out into space, she's revived, and apparently her brain stems froze, and now she's going to regenerate. She has a bi-generation splitting into two, and so now there is a new The Ronnie, and Mrs. Flood is just a Ronnie. And the new The Ronnie is apparently now in charge of Mrs. Flood, who's just a Ronnie. It was extremely bizarre. Not sure why we would have another bi-generation, especially since we've never seen such a thing before. Ncuti Gatwa and David Tennant's bi-generation, but whatever. The end. For the most part, this episode was an okay story. Unfortunately, the ending lacked resolution because those two Hellions who were trying to commit mass murder in retaliation for what happened to their home planet, I guess they're going to be going off to jail. Cora, who had cut off her own horns to try to pass as something else, and had apparently done so successfully for a long time, she sang her song, which I guess protested the corporation and what they'd done, but nothing was resolved. The corporation is still the sponsor for this song contest, so the ending was a mess. I didn't care for the ending. It also bothered me that the Hellions who tried to commit this mass murder, that the ringleader was a white male with a blonde mullet. Why? And then he showed no remorse at the end, especially considering that the Disney doctor has now seen his home planet destroyed twice. If you want to count the past as, I guess, canon to what's going on now. What a mess this show has become. But he showed no empathy for this kid, basically, who was just trying to get some revenge for losing everything. And the Disney doctor of all people should understand what that feels like. But no, he tortured this kid and then just sent him off to jail. And this kid showed no remorse whatsoever. It was terrible. This was a terrible episode as far as that goes. And it's a shame because I enjoyed the campy Eurovision stuff. Because I feel like it actually was being respectful to the song contest for the most part. But the writing was so superficial. And maybe it's because Juno Dawson is used to writing for young adults. This writer has done a few, I think it was a Doctor Who books and some other things, but I think this was their first television episode. But don't quote me on that. That's what it looked like when I tried to research the writer. But it just goes to show that they could have done a better job all along with the storytelling. And why do they have to keep putting these poison pills in there? They're so angry. They just want to lash out at the people that they find offensive. And they show no empathy for these people whatsoever. For instance, why was the secret Hellion, why was she a black woman? The one that cut off her horns so she could pass. And the one that turns out to be so evil is the white male with the blonde mullet. Just seriously, enough with the caricatures of people you don't like. Stop dehumanizing people. Stop stereotyping people. I'm so pissed. I'm tired of this shit.
They had those two terrorists take over the contest backstage, I guess we'll say, control room. And you had a choice of two characters. You had the white male with his mullet, or you had, and I can't be 100% sure, but you had the female who I believe had an Irish accent. But again, like Molly said earlier, don't quote me on that. But if she did have an Irish accent, it would have been far worse if they had to pick one of those two to be non-remorseful, to pick an Irish-derived terrorist with no remorse doing tons of damage. That would have been a horrible stereotype to do. So at least they didn't do that. So yay. But there is this consistent pattern now of white males being portrayed as either stupid or evil. And I don't think this is coincidental anymore. We released a video on Friday where we didn't state necessarily what the differences were on why this season the baddies, or at least some sort of antagonist, was pointed out to be, I guess, a piece of garbage in some sense. But this is getting ridiculous. It really is. Because if you had to pick one of those characters to be that, you had the choice of the mullet guy or possibly the Irish woman. Neither of those is good. They couldn't even give you somebody they could have slid in there that wouldn't have a really cringy real world stereotype that you would not want to be falling into.
Yeah, why couldn't they have painted them green and made them really alien? I'm sitting here watching it and I'm wondering, so is this some sort of weird regression to the 1980s for these people, or the early 90s? Like, is this some kind of condemnation of the IRA 40 years too late? The Irish Republican Army. Why are we rehashing this 40 years later? That's what it felt like. That's what I thought they were doing. Like, what are they doing? Why couldn't we do this in allegory? Oh, but they had horns. Okay, so you put devil horns on them, but he's still a white male with a blonde mullet. Really? Really?
And I get the idea that they were going to kill a bunch of innocents, including that delta wave device that was going to somehow transmit over the broadcast something to cause trillions with a T of people to die who were watching this contest. They didn't explain how that was going to work. I honestly don't care at this point. I just don't understand why they are making the narrative choices they are making.
I don't remember the name of the episode. Maybe you do. But this isn't the first time we've seen the Doctor and a delta wave. We saw this back with Christopher Eccleston, and this was a Satellite 5 episode.
Yeah, it was that two-parter finale. I don't remember. The Parting of the Ways? Was that what it was?
That could be. It was the one where it was Eccleston's final episode, and he was building the delta wave to try to kill the Daleks. It would have also killed all of the people on Earth as well. I think everybody on Satellite 5 too. So how was this kid going to set off this delta wave and not kill himself in the process? Was this some sort of suicide bomber kind of thing? And if that's the case, then this was a mess. This was such a mess. Why can't they just use... Oh, never mind. Ugh.
And a lot of this episode, to me, reminded me of the Kylie Minogue Christmas special, Voyage of the Damned, where that Titanic luxury liner was incapacitated, and then the survival pods, different places on the ship, were trying to survive. And it's more than just that general story. The nurse and the technician, Mike and Gary, they reminded me of that couple that scammed their way into the contest. Was it Fee?
Oh, it was Foon, and I don't remember her husband's name. But what happened was there was a contest, and you had to pay each time you entered. And she called and entered enough times that it was the same as if she'd actually just bought the tickets.
So she didn't really scam her way in. She just wasted a bunch of money to get herself in.
Yeah.
And that was similar. And in that episode, Voyage of the Damned, the enemy was the owner of that liner, Capricorn.
Max Capricorn.
And so the corporate thing there, and the captain who was participating in the purposeful destruction of that ship, it was some sort of corporate reward, I guess, because he was dying and he wanted to make sure his family was taken care of, if I'm remembering the story correctly. And so he was going to get a bunch of money to do this activity. Now, that's not quite the same story here, but that whole corporate tie was in this episode as well. And I appreciate that they were trying to state something about corporations strip mining resources, because in the United States, for the past 20 years, neighborhoods have been fighting left and right. Whenever a Walmart tries to come into a neighborhood, the neighborhood will try to get a petition going to stop Walmart from coming in, because if Walmart comes in, they will essentially cause all the other businesses in the neighborhood to go out of business, because Walmart can undercut anybody, because they can afford to have one of their bazillion stores take major losses in order to drive a neighborhood out of business. And then once done, they put their prices back up to where they need to be, and the problem is solved. So there was a corporate message here that could have been good, but I honestly don't know. There was some honey resource. I'm not really sure what it was, like a honey poppy, I think it was. which were harvested for some reason. I mean, I don't know if they ever stated what they were used for. I mean, maybe it doesn't even matter.
They said it was a flavoring.
And I'm assuming that at the end of this whole process, the corporation, was it just the fact that they used the soil resources to make these poppies, or did they, I'm trying to remember, did they purposely scorch the planet when they were done?
Yes, they did.
So that's second option.
Yes. Yeah, and it's kind of like, okay, so was this supposed to be an allegory for Afghanistan? Their opiate poppies.
That's a good question. It seems like it should be.
Yeah, but again, this was so sloppy that I'm not really sure what they were trying to do. And even Voyage of the Damned, which was a retelling of the Poseidon adventure, they did a much better job of explaining why the malevolent CEO was doing what he did, and why the captain of the ship did what he did, and what the outcome was going to be for everyone involved, actually. And this didn't do that, because it ended with the corporation still in place. Okay, so these people gave that Hellion woman a standing ovation for her song, but let's also remember she had cut off her horns, so she didn't look like a Hellion. So what is that going to change? I don't know if anybody actually got to see her performance, because the contest was ruined because they'd shown the dress rehearsal instead of the contest. I mean, it was such a mess.
I think they were rebroadcasting, because at the end there, they had like the cat lady with the bandage on her head, and was it Rylan? Is that his name?
Yeah.
And he was hosting again. So I think they went live again. So I think people did hear her singing, but to what effect? To what end?
Exactly. Did it change anything? Really, did it change anything? And they didn't show us that.
And it is a shame that they put in this very confusing messaging, because there were parts of this episode that I laughed purposely on, and Russell and his people were intending for me to laugh. When Shooty's doctor used that confetti cannon, and it reminded me of that Princess Leia scene from The Last Jedi. He even mentioned when he was safe inside, I think he called it camp, and then he like smiled and he laughed about it. And then that, what I mentioned at the end there, after all they were through, that the cat lady who was co-hosting the contest, she had that bandage on her head, and it just was funny that through all she's been through, that she was just continuing on with that bandage on her head. And I thought that was funny. It was like a visual joke, but it made me laugh, because they didn't really say anything overtly to make it funny. Just visually, it was funny to me. So there were pieces here that could have been good. I wish they would have added more diversity. This is the Interstellar Contest. And although you did see in the background a bunch of aliens, the main characters were essentially humans, or human-looking people with like horns on their heads or other things. Even the director who was running the show, they couldn't have painted her green or blue or something and tried to make her look like this was truly an interstellar thing, not just a bunch of human-looking people.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest complaints, because this episode bore no resemblance to the Amazing Stories episode.
That you were hoping they weren't going to borrow from, and luckily they did not.
Yeah, the Miss Stardust contest. And that episode from the 1980s, I felt, did a better job on their aliens than this did. This, like you just said, it was just humans with horns pasted on for the main cast, and there were only, well, we'll say 2 of them, because the third one had cut her horns off. So at one point you only see her lifting up her hair and showing the stubs. That's it. Everybody else looked human, like 100%. Yeah, if this is supposed to be an Interstellar Song Contest, why didn't we have more aliens actually in the main cast?
Right, and they were in the background.
Yeah.
When Shooty and Belinda were in their seats, because they didn't actually steal the tickets, they stole the seats. So Mike and Gary were upset because they're in our seats.
Well, when they tried to use their tickets, it didn't work because, the doctor and Belinda were already in their seats.
Yeah. So there were aliens in the background there, so why not in the main cast? And then, like, again, I'm not familiar with all the races in Doctor Who, but the co-host of that show, that cat lady who later had the bandage on her, is that the same cat race that was in Gridlock from the Tennant era?
Or even the nurses at the
Yep.
cat hospital in New York.
I don't even know the name of that race. I probably could dig and find out, but not that it matters. It would have been interesting because they were bringing Susan up. They were bringing the Ronnie back. So those are both classic Doctor Who ties. So this cat race, I assume it's that same race. I don't know how they would have tied that in there to make sure that I knew what that race was, but I assume that's the same race, but I don't know. It didn't really matter. The co-hosts were just, I guess, window dressing for the other story. They didn't really have any useful purpose in the show.
Yeah.
And both Molly and I, we watched the Eurovision Song Contest. In fact, we watched the contest first because in the States here, it aired at 3 p.m. Eastern Time here. And then later on in our evening, we watched this Disney Doctor Who episode. We were in the Eurovision mode. In fact, before we watched the contest, we watched the Father Ted episode with My Lovely Horse.
Yeah, A Song for Europe.
So we've been trying to follow this contest for a while. I think we found it, Lorraine, when she won in 2012 is when we first watched it. And then we went back on the internet and we watched all the contests till like 1980 because that's all we could find. And then before that, we just kind of made sure we knew who the winners were before that because we couldn't find full contests. So, I'm not going to say we're a Eurovision expert pair here because we're not. There are people out there that have memorized every little detail, but we've watched every contest since 2012, and we went back to 1980 and watched all the full contests. So
probably as far as Americans go, we're probably right up there with our knowledge.
Yeah, in the States, I think we could hold our own. But against some of the Europeans, not so much.
No.
So we were on board with this because up until recently, we've liked the Eurovision Song Contest. Recently, it seems to have gone all political. Seems like ever since COVID, it's been this political thing. It's always been political, but now it's like taking it on steroids. We still watch it, but it's not quite the same contest it was in I think we decided 2016 was 17 maybe was the last time we actually enjoyed the contest.
Something like that, yeah.
And then it just started slowly just degrading. But I mean, that's just from our state's point of view. If somebody in Europe thinks it's still an awesome contest, you go right ahead. Not trying to steal that experience away from you. So we're familiar with the Eurovision Song Contest. We love watching it, even now. And so this was an episode that we really wanted to get into. And there were parts of it that I did enjoy. I kind of wish the episode would have had a little bit more with the contest running and just having bizarre singers on stage while the Doctor and Belinda were trying to figure something out before the big catastrophe happened, because I think they only had one singer that was on stage before the catastrophe happened. And I think that was an alien, actually, with rainbow sleeves or something. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
So they could have had fun with that for a while to kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the audience while they were trying to figure the stuff out. But it didn't last long. The Eurovision fun of this did not last for long, and then it just turned into the catastrophe that it was. And these people floating up there, and then this whole Mavity thing. So, this is the double-edged sword, I guess pun intended if we're talking by generation, that Russell and his people are doing here. If this Mavity thing is supposed to imply that there is some change in reality, because that's going back to the 60th anniversary, and gravity was changed to Mavity with an M. That's not you mishearing what we're saying if you haven't been following this. So all through the past 2 seasons, whenever they talk about gravity, they actually say Mavity. And I think that's supposed to be a signpost to let us know that there's something wrong with this reality, because that's not following. And again, going along with this, I think that's why they're having these bi-generations now, as it's also supposed to be an indicator that there's something wrong with this reality. But my problem with that is, let's assume that's true. I don't know if that's true, but let's just assume all this is true, and this is some offshoot reality that happened when David Tennant's second Doctor made that wish on the edge of the universe, and it just changed reality. Well, if they reset the universe one day back to what it's supposed to be, what's the rewatchability of these 2 seasons of shooty Doctor Who?
If this is a split reality, not much.
Because the individual episodes aren't very good for the most part. People watch it because they're trying to, I hope, see if there's an arc going on here that they can work with. Well, once it's figured out, is there any rewatchability? Are there any character moments or any plot points that you want to go back and rewatch? Do you really want to see Mrs. Flood and all of her appearances that are happening? Because I didn't even understand that. If they're supposed to be, if both of these bi-generation splits are supposed to be the Ronnie, why was one subservient to the other?
I just don't see the Ronnie being subservient to anyone, even herself.
Because in The Mark of the Ronnie, the Master and the Ronnie were butting heads all the time. So imagine the Ronnie butting heads with herself. There would be lots of opportunity for amusement there, and we'll see if next week if it turns into that. But at the end of this, Mrs. Flood was just totally subservient to this new Ronnie that cropped up. And it's like, why would that happen? You would think they'd be arguing with each other and both vying for power, you know, as they're walking off stage. So I didn't get that. I didn't understand that. David Tennant wasn't subservient to Shooty when he bi-generated out. So I don't understand what this was about. And I just rolled my eyes. To be kind to this episode, if an episode like this would have been last season, maybe the first, second, or third episode, I might have been more invested with this series going, hey, they're bringing Susan back, they're bringing the Ronnie back. You're not trying to stretch out these mystery boxes. Okay, there's a reason for me to rewatch this because those 60th anniversaries weren't very good. So give me something good to just latch on to. So now you've got the Ronnie coming back. You got Susan potentially coming back. Hey, I'm invested enough to know I'm wanting to watch next week to see how this all wraps up. So I had to go through 2 seasons to get to one episode that I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this. That's not very good storytelling. It's not. We stretched out the mystery. Yeah, but I didn't care about the mystery. Watching Mrs. Flood at the end of an episode or during the episode walk in the back, I didn't care. That's so fine. That's Where's Waldo. I don't want to play Where's Waldo. It's like Russell thought he was making a new Bad Wolf. This is the new Bad Wolf that he's going to do. Really? Mrs. Flood is Bad Wolf, that type of arc. Really? And then it's the Ronnie now, and if you don't do the Ronnie any sort of justice in the next couple of episodes, because I think it's a 2-parter finale, then this is all going to be just for nothing. Absolutely nothing. A bunch of mystery boxes that meant nothing. And all this Mavity stuff meant nothing. I'm getting sick of seeing the white guy with the mullet always be the bad guy. Even when the doctor was talking to him and explaining that this was garbage what you were doing, he just had this sociopathic look to him like, I don't care. Really, if you had to have a character do that, why couldn't you have the female? I know why, because I think she had an Irish accent, and that would have been past allegory and right in your face, and I don't think they wanted that sort of heat coming at them. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to finishing this up in the next 2-parter here, and then I'm hoping the show is canceled because I don't want to do any more of the show. Dumpster diving into an episode looking for any positives that I can find from it. I'm tired of doing that. I really am, because I don't even understand. They burned their planet and they wanted revenge. And okay, I mean, I know a lot of our viewers watch Babylon 5, but I was thinking, okay, so this is the Narn and the Centauri, when the Centauri occupied their world and then they sowed their fields with salt to make sure they couldn't grow anything. It was something like that, except it was corporations doing that, not individual governments. I don't know.
I kind of saw it as Callisto and Xena from Xena Warrior Princess, because Xena's army marched in and burned Callisto's home, like her whole village, and killed her mother and her sister. And that turned Callisto into, well, a real monster.
Which was more developed than what they did here.
Yeah.
A tongue-in-cheek 1990s spin-off of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, did a better job than this episode of giving me an understanding for what do these terrorists, show me their perspective. They're not just evil. What did they do here? Why did they do this? Just giving me exposition about a big corporation came in and did something bad. That's not enough for me to feel why I should side with these terrorists for even a moment.
Yeah, because the portrayal by Hudson Lake, she did a much better job with what she was given than what we saw from the acting in this episode. The stories were much better. You actually had empathy for this person who was going around just in a murderous rage because she had lost everything because of the actions of Xena. You felt empathy for her, even though she was this horrible person at this point. In this episode of Doctor Who, you weren't supposed to be empathetic, I guess. I don't know, because they wanted to have it both ways. They wanted him to be this huge villain, but they also wanted you to have empathy for Cora, who had cut off her horns and tried to pass. You can't have it both ways. You just can't.
Cora reminded me of, and I always get his name wrong, but going back to Voyage of the Damned, that the cyborgs were considered a forbidden technology. Was it Bata?
I think it was, I always get this almost right. Bata Cavalata.
And it just reminded me of that type of character where you've got this existence that you have to keep hidden because reasons. And there were just several things of this in this episode that reminded me of Voyage of the Damned. Russell going back. I know Russell wasn't on the script, but you know he had major input on the storylines in here.
Well, he's the showrunner. He should.
I don't understand what Russell is doing at this point. I just don't get it. I'm getting tired of watching this show. Because sometime in the summertime, they're going to release Strange New Worlds. And I'm going to have to deal with that garbage. Because it's most likely going to be garbage. Why wouldn't it be? From Secret Hideout, it's going to be garbage. And I used to watch Doctor Who for escapism. I wanted to see a guy get into his blue box with his companion and go do adventure stuff out in the universe. That's it. I didn't want any soap opera stuff going on. I didn't want any major messaging about current day politics or pop culture or whatever. Just get in the box and go have an adventure. I don't know, like, that's a simple formula. Why can't you do that? This was almost that when they were at the contest and they were messing around, like at the beginning, enjoying the contest, and then something was getting ready to happen. We were both having a good time with the episode. And then when they brought in those Hellions, it's like, oh God, here we go now.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm getting disgusted with the way this stuff is being. Oh, actually, I'm not getting. I'm past disgusted with it. It's wasting my time. This is wasting my time to watch this stuff. I know I came back because I got so disgusted a couple of episodes ago, and I'm going to finish this out. But I want this series canceled because I don't want to do this crap anymore. I used to like watching Doctor Who. In fact, we went back after watching this episode, and we went back and rewatched Mark of the Rani and Time of the Rani. And I think the first one of those, the Mark, I enjoyed more. And I can just say that was a longer serial, because I think it was like 2 hours when you added all the parts together. And the slower pace, the characters making sense, the connivings that they were doing, the Master and the Rani kind of trying to out-connive each other in that Mark of the Rani serial, that was such an enjoyable serial. Rewatching it, I enjoyed it, because we wanted to make sure we were mostly ramped up for next week when they brought the Rani back in. So like afterwards, we ended up watching both of those Rani serials. And I recommend watching both of those, especially the Mark of the Rani, over this. Because I don't even know what this is going to do. Classic Who, I understand they probably can't tell 4-part, 2-hour series anymore. The attention span of the modern day audience wouldn't tolerate that. But man, I wish they could do like a spin-off web series with a lower budget so that maybe they could tell some slower burning episodes, because I would rather re-watch Mark of the Rani again than have to watch next week's episode. I used to like Doctor Who. I used to like Classic Who for what it was. And then when Russell brought it back, he not only did he change how things were presented a little bit, but they had to go from serial to episodic, basically, because they couldn't have 20-minute 4-part episodes anymore. And so I got used to that different type of storytelling. The stories have a different pace to them because you have to kind of run through a serial, an episode, because it's not even a serial at that point, because you have to get it under an hour. So you're not able to explore things as much as you can. But going back and watching Classic, oh my gosh, that is such a nicer experience when you want to just get immersed in the story and just feel you're at this new location where the doctor's visiting and just enjoy the moment. You don't have people running around screaming and yelling and music blaring in your ear all the time. It's just such a more laid-back experience. And I accepted New Who for what it was, and I got stuff out of it. I really enjoyed the Eccleston run and some of the Tennant run. Didn't really care for the Matt Smith or Capaldi runs, and obviously Jodie Whittaker I didn't care for, and this crap I don't care for now. And I don't know why I'm going to continue to watch this. I'm not culturally tied to this. I'm from the States. I'm not from the UK, so there's no sort of cultural obligation to stand up for this franchise. I'll stand up for Star Trek because I grew up with it. It's not quite the same as how Doctor Who is for the UK, but for me personally, I have a stronger bond with Star Trek versus Doctor Who. But I'm even at a point now where I'm starting to question, do I even want to continue watching anything that calls itself Star Trek?
No.
It's a chore. They put these poison pills in there. They do all these racist and sexist things, and we're supposed to applaud them for doing a great job. And it's like, this is some horrible crap that you're doing. It reminds me of back in the 70s when they made all those blaxploitation films. And back then, I guess people didn't think about what they were doing, and then you watch it now, and yeah, occasionally you can kind of laugh at some of the what the hell were you thinking, but mostly it's offensive material. And that's what this era is going to be looked at, as like those blaxploitation films. There's going to be no rewatchability, and it's going to be offensive. And they're going to have to edit pieces out of it to make it consumable for a modern audience. A modern audience, I'm talking 20 years from now.
Well, they're getting a lot of practice on doing that to the stuff from our past currently. So
I'm not big into like editing and censoring like we talked about a few episodes ago. I'm just saying for the modern audience, that's what these corporations are going to have to do, is in 20 years, they're going to have to edit these episodes because there's all this offensive material in it. All this misandry that they're pushing. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just going to start calling it out. Russell Davies has this white misandric problem. It's offensive. He should be called out for it. I don't know why he's doing this, but he's doing it. It's offensive. It's not, hey, it's a coincidence he's doing it. This is more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. This is becoming a major problem with him. This is offensive material. I don't know why people are tolerating this material. I wouldn't want children watching this. What they're going to learn is white males are evil, and you should stay away from them. And if you're in England, specifically England, part of the UK, and you're being taught that white males are evil, that's what you're putting out there over the BBC, publicly funded television. Really? I mean, I understand that throughout the decades, if we're talking 20th and 21st century, race relations and sex, male to female relations have been iffy, and women and people of color have been on the short end of the stick for a long time. But 2 wrongs do not make a right. And what Russell is doing now is purposeful. I could make the argument the horrible stuff they did in the past in the other direction was ignorant people not knowing what they were doing. But what Russell is doing is very purposeful. This is some evil crap that this man is doing. And I'm getting tired of putting up with it. Digging through the dumpster looking for positives in an episode that has these poison pills in it. I'm getting tired of doing it. So yeah, I'll finish up this last 2-parter, and that's probably it for the old man. But like Molly said, that's probably it for Doctor Who anyway, so it won't even be a thing. I'm looking forward to when Molly and I can be done with this series. And then before stupid Strange New World starts up, we've got a couple of reviews of older shows that we want to do that we actually enjoy and we like talking about. Good science fiction. Not this crap. So, I don't know. Was this the worst thing ever? No. I laughed at a few points in it. You'll probably have a good time if you watch it. If you just shut your brain off and go, this is a one-time installment, fine. If the messaging doesn't bother you, then, you can turn that off too. It won't matter. Just keep watching. Go ahead and keep watching. Keep supporting this stuff. Go for it. The more you support this stuff, the worse it's going to get, is all I'm going to tell people. When you keep giving them support for this crap, they'll just keep making more of this crap. They have no reason to change. They're just going to keep making it.
And I don't even know if we stop watching if they're going to stop making it. That's what I don't understand.
Where's the money coming from? Who is watching this still?
Yeah, because obviously in the UK, money through the BBC is coming from licensing paid for by people who have their TV license there. Here, the money coming through Disney that's going to Bad Wolf to make this crap, I don't understand how Disney keeps having infinite money to keep paying for this garbage. Especially when you keep seeing them fail over and over and over again. They're not making back what they've invested into a lot of films and TV shows. So where's the rest of that money coming from?
It's like there's some outside investors, whether it's government or other entities, I guess we'll call them, that are investing in this kind of crap. Make this crap. We'll allow you to take massive losses. Make this crap over and over and over again.
That's got to be it.
Disney should be bankrupt at this point.
Yeah.
Considering the past 5 years of failures, they should be bankrupt at this point.
Their shareholders should be screaming. But somehow the money keeps coming. Where is it coming from? Ticket purchases aren't backing up any kind of success for them. We see these films playing to empty theaters. Viewing numbers aren't backing up on the streaming services, not justifying the continuation of these series. A lot of them have been canceled, yes, but then they keep churning out new ones. How?
I don't know. I wish that I had the ability to fail in life over and over and over again and to not lose any money on it, and I could just keep failing for the rest of my life. I mean, that would be a nice, easy life for me to live.
I just don't understand. I just don't. Like, we're having this crap forced on us, whether we buy tickets to it or not.
Well, we're choosing to watch it, but we're choosing to watch it because we used to like this show.
True. That's true. But I don't go to the movies anymore. Last thing I saw was that Robbie Williams Better Man, and I was one of 2 people in that theater. And that was actually a good film. The next film I plan on seeing is Dogma. I haven't seen anything since Better Man. After Dogma, the next thing I plan on seeing is the remastered Jaws this fall. I'm not going to see anything else this summer. So I don't understand how these studios are staying in business. Who's actually paying for these tickets? Because I don't know anybody who actually goes and watches this crap. And then apparently in the UK, they're going to be showing this Doctor Who finale in theaters. Who is paying to go see this in the theater?
Well, that one I don't know. Maybe they'll fill the theaters up.
Well, and again, I wonder, because I know with Captain Marvel here, you had these so-called nonprofit organizations buying up tickets that were supposed to be donated to little girls to go see Captain Marvel, but then that movie was showing to empty theaters. Is that what's happening here? Somebody's buying up all these tickets to make it look like it was more successful than it was.
Well, they were a bit clever at the end here. They teased Susan and the Ronnie. So that might be enough to get mainstreamers in the UK to go and sit in a theater. You guys do what you're going to do, but I do not have a lot of hope for what's going to happen in this next 2-parter. I don't get it. We're at this cultural wasteland right now, and I realize as an old man, getting older, I eventually slipped out of the target audience that they were targeting, and so I have to watch material made for a different target audience. But I'm not seeing a ton of young people talking about Disney Doctor Who. I'm seeing a lot of older millennials, Gen Xers, and maybe a little bit of boomers talking about it. Where's this young audience that Russell said he was bringing in with this material? Shouldn't we be seeing alphas and some Gen Zers talking about this stuff? All I see are Gen Xers. When I go on, I see Xers or older millennials talking about this Disney Doctor Who.
Maybe the young people are all over on TikTok, and we don't frequent TikTok, so we don't see what's going on over there. However, if they were, I would assume that some of the YouTubers would be showing us those videos.
That's proof. Yeah. Proof of how great this is. Look how great Disney Doctor Who is.
Yeah, but that's not happening. So, like you just said, like, who is actually watching this? Is this all just legacy people holding on, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the next episode will be better?
Because I want this thing dead. Like, I'm sorry, guys. If you're from the UK and me stating that is causing you great distress, I apologize. But I'm tired of watching this crap. I'm tired of it. This is crap. I think I deserve better. I've lived a full life. I'm not done yet. And I want some good television and movies. I don't want to keep watching crap. And then these people that say, well, if you don't like it, don't watch this anymore. Well, right, I'm getting to that point. But I'm not hate watching. The difference is if somebody watches something because they want to hate on it. I just want to sit there and live in the moment of hating it. That's the exact opposite of what I want to do. Molly and I used to like this franchise. We liked it. We're watching this because we're hoping it would turn around, especially under Russell Davies. After Chibnall ran it right into the ground with the Timeless Child, I thought that maybe Russell would come in. I wasn't expecting him to necessarily contradict what Chibnall did, but maybe just ignore it and move on. Nope, he's tripling down on that crap. And so, yeah, I am going to quit watching because I don't want to hate watch it. This is probably my last season. In fact, no, probably. I think I'm done after this 2-part finale until new ownership comes in to make Doctor Who. I'm not going to do this anymore. I might show up if there's a special, because I think they got some offshoot crap of Unit that they're trying to do. If it's just a one-off movie, I might do that just to say, here's what it is. But if they spin off a new series, I don't think I want to do that with Molly. Molly's going to have to do it on her own if she wants to do it.
I'm not doing that. This is it. After the finale for this season, I'm not watching Doctor Who anymore. I'm done. I kept hoping that miraculously that the next episode would be better. Even this episode, at the beginning, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe they actually got this right. And then it just went off the rails like every other episode for, I can't even say how long now. I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah, I'll watch that movie or whatever it is for that Unit spinoff. But if it turns out that it's a series, I'm not watching the whole series. I am not doing that. In fact, I have reservations about watching any movie that is spun off with the current Unit people. Because if it is Kate Lethbridge-Stewart and the rest of that crew there at Unit,
they're dangerous.
They're horrible characters.
After watching that Conrad episode, people should be afraid of Unit. That's a horribly conceived reinterpretation of what Unit used to be.
I really, really, really miss the Brigadier. I miss Pertwee and the way his doctor and the Brigadier would butt heads. I miss that so much.
Remember that time when he got his TARDIS fixed, and so he thought he could get away, and he was lipping off to the Brigadier?
He thought the TARDIS was fixed.
Yeah, and then he had to come back and eat a bunch of crow. That was great.
Yep, that was fantastic. But that's when they knew how to write clever snark and not whatever they're doing now. Because we saw that same kind of snark in The Mark of the Rani, with the Rani and the Master going at it.
Those sniping, sniping they were doing
great.
back and forth was great. Both of them were trying to jock for position, and even though this was a different actor that played the Master back during the Pertwee era.
Roger Delgado. It was Ainsley. I can't remember his first name.
Anthony, I think.
Yeah.
But he was better than I remembered him because I hadn't watched this in actually probably over a decade maybe. And this was good. He was getting some good jabs in there, and she was getting some good ones back. There was The Mark of the Rani. I would highly recommend it. It's Colin Baker era. I would recommend, I think 1986, I think it
was 5.
85, okay, 85. It was fun. Watch that serial. That was a fun serial. I'm not a big fan of the Colin Baker era, but that was a fun serial.
It was. That I really did enjoy that. It was funny. They knew how to be clever back then, and they don't know how to be clever now.
No, they pat themselves on the back for what they think they're doing a good job. And it's not. You're not doing a good job at all. And I don't understand. This is supposed to be escapism. We have world economies getting ready to collapse. We've got potential wars breaking out all over. And the populace in the Western world especially, we would like to have escapism. That's why we watched stuff like this back in the day. I mean, I can only speak from the United States point of view, but a lot of the reason TOS took off like it did was because people in these states were tired of the Vietnam stuff. And having this future where we all survived, we weren't in this conflict anymore. We made it through the Cold War okay. Well, eventually okay. And we had a better society set up. Lots of people, that's why Star Trek endured to where it is up until, JJ era. And then JJ era, well, there goes that.
Because people need hope. That was the last thing left in Pandora's box after it was open. Hope. And now we've had that stolen from us, too. I'm done. Russell Davies, what the hell are you doing?
It's supposed to be escapism. Put the guy in the box, put a companion in there, go out to the universe and adventure. That's what you're supposed to do. Real freaking simple. It's a simple formula. Do that.
Yeah.
Where is this extra Disney money going? When we were talking about there were some aliens in the background of this Interstellar Contest episode, but all the main characters were humanoid looking. That was back in the day when both Star Trek and even Doctor Who didn't have the money to do something necessarily all that elegant. Well, they're not supposed to be on a budget anymore, so you couldn't get a couple of prosthetic items going on or a CGI alien going on in this episode for a main character? Gary and Mike, one of them couldn't be an actual CGI alien? Really? Or somebody in prosthetics? Really? Where is that money going?
It was an extremely expensive mullet.
Yeah, it was really, really expensive. It was made out of real gold.
Oh my God.
So, guys, I wish that I could give you something good to believe in here. This was not a horrible episode, but it was same old, same old.
Yeah. Like, the story itself was, pretty superficial, to be honest. Parts of it gave me a chuckle. But for the most part, it's those poison pills that they stick in. There's superficial story, poison pills. Why would anybody continue to watch this? Which is why, after the finale for this season, we're not going to watch this anymore either.
Why would anybody buy merchandise from this era?
Well, that's the thing that really bothers me, because that's who really suffers, I think. Like, here in the United States, we've got this company called Who North America. And they were the the American supplier for all things Doctor Who. A lot of the other BBC shows, you could get merchandise from them for that. And now, I don't know. I question what this has done to their bottom line, because I can't imagine that it would be anything good, because I haven't bought anything from them in years. And it's largely because this show has turned to crap. But that's,
Who's buying the shooty Doctor Who sonic device? Is that really flying off the shelves?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too. Or what is the shooty Doctor Who costume? Seriously, you could get a scarf and a hat. Hey, you're Tom Baker. When you're dressing up as Shooty Who, what do you dress up as? What's your costume?
Well, you buy those really expensive shoes that he has, but first you've got to save up all your extra money for like 2 years to buy them.
David Tennant, Matt Smith in his bow tie and fez. There were looks to all the doctors. What the heck is this? I guess Jodie Whittaker had a look. She looked like she escaped from a mental asylum, but I mean, she had a look. She looked like Mork from Ork, if you remember that Mork and Mindy from the 70s. That wasn't a good look. She looked like she was a mental patient, but it was a look. I don't know how you buy anything for Shooty Who. How do you dress up? Hey, I'm going out as a costume party as Shooty Who. What are you going to wear? What's a Shooty Who look like? I have no idea. I have no freaking idea what a Shooty Who looks like.
I don't know.
So, I guess from my end, that's pretty much my review. This is the same old, same old. It was probably on the better end of things, but it was the same thing that they've been doing. Poison pills in here, absurdity in here, and not the good kind. There was an occasional laugh here or there, but nah, I'm not gonna recommend this. This isn't worth wasting your time. Whatever positives are in here, you can find better material. Go watch Mark of the Rani. Just go watch that. That's a better time. You'll laugh more in that on purpose than this crap.
Or if you're into the whole Eurovision thing, go watch Father Ted. I believe it's season 2, episode 5, A Song for Europe. That was a clever episode. Also, the Will Ferrell movie.
Fire Saga.
Yeah, Eurovision, the story of Fire Saga. That actually, I thought, was a pretty good representation of the contest. There were a few things in there that you might roll your eyes at, but it was better than this. So, yeah, so there's other things you can do with your time. Don't watch this. This is, and I just want to say this, this is to Russell Davies. I loved what you did with the revival back in 2005. Turn Left is my absolute favorite episode of all time, of all Doctor Who. This feels like you genuinely hate me and that you are trying to hurt me, because what you have written for the last 2 seasons, has just been a nightmare. And I don't know why you are the way you are now. I have my suspicions, but what you've been doing is not okay. And I'm not going to watch anymore.
One more 2-parter, and then we're done.
Yeah, I'm done. So, yep, we will watch the 2-part finale, and then rest in peace, Doctor Who.
So until next week,
take care.